Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. If you've seen this channel before, you know I'm a big fan of the narrative framework plugins to add quests, dialogue, maps, inventory, and a bunch of other stuff to your game. But a common compatibility people mention is Ultra Dynamic Sky. I've recently been playing with Ultra Dynamic Sky and I've got it in my game. It looks really nice. I've had it for a while now. And I figured now is a good time as any to do an integration between narrative and Ultra Dynamic Sky. It's really easy to do, so let's get started. So for this tutorial, you will obviously need narrative. I'm using quest and dialogue to do this, but realistically, the code will work in any plugin you need it. So if you have like a magical ball in your inventory that when you activate it changes the weather, the same code will apply. And equally, you will need Ultra Dynamic Sky. Both of the plugins are required to do this, as you can imagine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm really just going to come and set up another dev map because it's just so much easier to work with having to do it in this level and wait ages for it to load. I'm just going to create a basic empty level. I'm going to add a plane. I'm going to set it to 100 on the scale. I'm going to set the material to be the prototype grid. There we go. Now I can add my Ultra Dynamic Sky into it. So I'll just come to my blueprints and I'll search for Ultra Dynamic Sky blueprints, and you'll see you've got your two blueprints there, which is your sky and your weather, and I'll just put them roughly wherever. And then it automatically sets the weather to rainy for some reason, so I'll just come and change the preset to clear skies just so we know it's working. Finally, I'll just add a quick player starting, and then I'll change my game mode to my ALS game mode. And now if I save it, I'll go into my dev maps, let's call it M_UDS narrative. And now if I click play, I've got a super basic scene where I can run around as my character, and you can see I've got Ultra Dynamic Sky up and running nicely. So how do we actually go about changing Ultra Dynamic Sky from narrative? So the key thing from narrative's perspective is you have your conditions, so we'll use those to tell what is the weather. Is the weather currently this? Is the weather currently that? And that's a great way for us to do time-based quests. We'll also have events where we can tell Ultra Dynamic Sky to change its properties, such as its weather or its time, whatever we really want to. And then around those two, we can build quests and tasks and data tasks around it to use that Ultra Dynamic Sky however we'd like. So let's get started with a basic example then. I'm going to come and create a test dialog called the Weatherman, and I'll open this up. I'll get rid of his default text. And this is just going to be a bunch of basic stuff we can talk to him and tell him to control Ultra Dynamic Sky. So I'll come into here, I'll add a dialogue line for the player, and I'll just say, can you make it rain? And then for the Weatherman, we'll just add some default text of like, rain? Hardly knew it. You know, some cheesy weather anchorman style dialogue. So how do we actually change UDS from here? So in order to change things from narrative, you typically use events. So let's go and create a custom event that will change the type of the UDS weather. So we can actually change this preset here in the editor to make it rain like so, or we can actually change this exact preset from code as well. So if I come to my content drawer here, and I'll go into my narrative folder, I'll go into my events, I'll add a new narrative event, and I'll call it any, and for this one I'll call it UDS _ change weather, and then we'll open this up. So I'll go into my functions, my execute event, and then the first thing we need to do is we actually need to get the main instance of this ultra dynamic weather here. Now you could cache this somewhere, but you're probably not going to be changing the weather type that often that caching it in memory is worth it. So like we're going to be talking to the Weatherman once every so often, for example, or your quest will once every so often change the weather. So for me, I don't see the point of caching it. So I'm just going to go and search the world for it. So I'm going to use get all actors of class. I'm going to search for my ultra dynamic weather here. Then I'm going to get the first one and I'm going to make sure it's valid because you might be running this and you might not have Ultra Dynamic Sky on the level. If it's not valid, then we can just print out an error. UDW not found, and I can just return from this just so it doesn't crash or sit waiting for this to finish. If it is valid, then what do we do? Well, the first thing we can do is we'll just promote this to a local variable. I'll call it UDW and I'll connect it up because this just means we don't have to drag lines everywhere later. And then from here, the simple node we have to call to change the weather is simply change weather using type here. And you'll see when I did do this, there was a lot of different things you could do. Like if we do change, Ultra Dynamic Sky does have a lot of good documentation, which is where I figured everything out myself. So if you come into the blueprints folder and you've got the README here, it's just an editor utility widget. So you right click and do run. And then you get this really nice thing here with a search, or you can look up basics. So if you go to weather basics, changing the starting weather, you can change it. And then you've got a bunch of different stuff to really change, and you've got access to everything you need. if you need to change it. So we'll do weather type. You can see changing the starting weather, it gives us that one for some reason. But yeah, the documentation is very good. So on here, we'll just connect this to our isValid node. The new weather type, I'm actually going to promote to a variable, so we've got maximum customization of it. And the time to transition to new settings, I'm going to promote this to a variable as well. Now, from my experience, 200 is quite long. That's 200 seconds. That's just over 3 minutes to change. So we'll probably change that back down. And then we could change these two if we want as well, but I'm going to leave them for now and see what happens. And then I'm simply going to return it. Now, we can also come and make this look a little bit nicer, so we can give it a proper display name. So we can call it change weather. In the category, I can set it to UDS so we know what it's part of. Then we can even come into the get graph display text. Delete this off. We can append onto the end of here. Let's say change weather to, and we can grab this and just push it into there like so. So it'll say change weather to clear sky, something like that. We compile and save and now go back to our weatherman. We click rain, I hardly knew it, and then go to events. I will add a new event, and then you can see we have a change weather node now. Open this up, and where do we want to run it? We'll run it at the end, so once you've finished talking. What we want it to be rainy, so let's do rain. Time to transition to new settings. Let's just set it to 5 seconds. So hopefully within the space of 5 seconds, we should have weather changing. And you can see change weather to rain is now in the description as well. So let's add a basic guard in here from our NPCs, and let's make him talk to us. So I'll spin her around. I'll give her some dialogue, which will be our weatherman, and let's try it. So if I run up, you can see talk to the weatherman. It'll say, can you make it rain? I hardly knew him. And in the space of 5 seconds, you should see it now suddenly starts raining. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? It's pretty neat. Of course, 5 seconds is a bit, it looks weird. And you wouldn't have that in the game, but for testing this, let's bump it up to 15 seconds. And now imagine a case where you've just stolen something from an enemy camp. You run up, you're very happy, you talk to the weatherman, you tell them, hey, I've finally got these goods. They're crying, you're like, what's wrong? And they're like, they've kidnapped my sister, you need to go and get them. They said they're going to kill her if you don't return it. And you're like, oh no, okay, so you start running away, and as you get closer to the objective, the time is ticking down, and then all of a sudden you can just see the skies forming, and then it starts to rain as you're going to a grisly, serious mission. And that's it. How cool is that? And the cool thing is, this code here is nothing specific to narrative. The event stuff is, but the getting the class and setting the weather, you can do that anywhere. Absolutely anywhere you want. For example, I'm pretty sure it's already got one anyway, but we'll do it just for testing. If I come and add a blueprint class here of a type of actor and call it BP weather trigger and open this up, we'll add a sphere collision and just scale it up a little bit. Then I'm going to come and copy all the code from here like so, and I'm going to come and paste it inside the overlap of the weather trigger. So if we go there on component begin overlap, I'll just quickly make sure the other actor equals my get player pawn, and then I will paste all this code afterwards, drag it across a bit. And now if we connect this to the true node here, so if the player hits it, get the first one, we can't set variables inside here, so we'll just do that instead, just because it's only short. I'll drag this get over to here instead of the UDW because it's not a function. I'll convert the weather type and the time to transition both to variables. Make sure they're instance editable, and I'll compile and save. And that's it. And what I will also do actually on the end is I will just destroy this actor, because you don't want to be able to run into it and reset the timer every time you run into it. So now, instead of walking over to her and talking to it, maybe we're already on the way to go and rescue our sister. So I'll just say, we'll set it to a thunderstorm, and we'll say in 5 seconds as soon as you reach that area. There's trees everywhere, whatever it is. You come up, you talk to her, and she's like, oh no, they've stolen my sister, please help. So we run off, and we know it's going to be a dark, grisly mission, so we've triggered it. And as we're running closer, you can see everything is getting darker. It's now a dark mission, thunderbolts everywhere, and then we have to rescue everyone. So it's really, really easy to do, even in narrative. But let's crack on doing some more narrative stuff. What else can we add? So with the weatherman, we've now changed the weather, but what if we want to change the time? So we can do that as well. So let's add another play response, and we'll say, can you make it daytime? And then we'll give them a dialogue node saying, all the more better to see you with. But we can also drag off and we'll say, let's do nighttime. And then we'll add another dialogue line saying, planning some stealth mission. There we go. So now how do we actually go about adding the event to make it do it? So I'm going to go into my narrative events folder, and then I'm just going to duplicate the UDS change weather, and I'll call it any_UDS_change time. And I'll open this up. So the difference is we don't need the weather system this time, because the weather doesn't control the time of day. That is handled by the sky. So if I come down to the time of day and set it to 0, you'll see it will be nighttime. It's completely invisible because I've not got any lights. If I come and set it to about 1,000, that's roughly midday-ish. I think this goes up to 24,000, I think, something like that. I think it's like that. Yeah, so we'll set it to daytime again. And then back on here, execute event. Instead of searching for the ultra dynamic weather, we'll search for ultra dynamic sky instead this time. We'll change the variable to be UDS and change the variable's data type to be ultra dynamic sky. Yes, I want to change all the variables. We'll re-get this just to make it work properly. We'll revalidate it, and we can't find UDS. And then, instead of this one over here, change the weather type, get rid of these, and we'll delete the two variables. Instead, we just drag off, and we choose set time of day. And the easiest way I've found to do it is to use the actual variable. We just set it here. And because Ultra Dynamic Sky is running its simulations, as soon as we change that, it tends to pick it up quite quick. So this could be used for if you're going to sleep and you're pressing a button to change time of day. It could be you're attending a party or some dialogue and time fast forwards, whatever you want. We'll promote this time of day to a variable, and then we will add it to the return node. Finally, we will come back to our class defaults. Let's set it here, change time of day, and then in our get graph display text, change time to, and we can drag in our time of day like so. So now we've got an easy event to add to each of these. So if we just add it into here, change time of day, we'll do it at the end again, and then this time, because it's going to daytime, I'll set it to about 1200 because we know that's a good clear skies daytime. If I shift right click the events and then come over to here and shift left click to paste it, we can now set the time. Let's set it to morning, so we'll do about compile and save. And just because we're not going to be able to see anything, let's just add a basic point lighting like so. Drag it up here just so when it is dark we can still see. But now if we talk to her, you can see it's daytime, so let's make it nighttime, and then boom, nighttime. We've got a basic thing, we can only see what we can. Let's talk to her again and make it daytime. And there we go, it is now daytime. And it's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. So the key thing for actually changing things on Ultra Dynamic Sky is just finding the correct variables and the correct place to change things. For me, the key one is changing time and changing weather. That's really mostly what I want to do. You might ever so often want to change the wind speed, for example. So if we just go and set it to rain here, you can see it's raining, but maybe we want it to be a very heavy wind. It's blowing somewhere else. So we could set the wind intensity to 10. And now you can see it's a proper gustful whoosh. So as you're walking into it, you should really feel out your face. Yeah, so it's going sideways. Look, the wind's really bad. Pair that up with your moving trees and stuff, it looks even better. But how do we go about changing it? If we just go back to our clear skies here. So all I did to find this out was I looked down the variables and I roughly guessed at their names. So for example, wind intensity, the strength of the wind. Let's see if we can make one to change the wind strength. So I'll duplicate this one, UDS change wind, and we'll do both winds at the same time. So I know that it's on the ultra dynamic weather blueprint. So we know we want to go to our event graph, and we've got our ultra dynamic weather here. That's fine. So I can delete this bit off here, and I'm just going to guess. That's all I did, and just guessed and test it. So wind intensity, let's just try that one. Set wind intensity. So you've got a wind intensity there. We can get the current wind intensity global, but there's no functions that look to do it. So if we try update, so there's definitely no update. So I'm going to take a guess. We probably just set the wind intensity there. I'll promote that to a variable, connect it all up. The second one we wanted to do was the wind direction. So again, we haven't got any functions or anything. So we can search for, see if we've got any wind at all. Nope, we've got no wind, so let's just do set wind direction, and we'll just see if that one works. I think that's the key thing with Ultra Dynamic Sky, is because it runs almost on tick to actually adjust the weather properties, do the timings and stuff. Any changes to variables are just automatically picked up. So let's set this wind direction to a variable. We'll delete the old ones off, and then we'll set the class settings up here. Change wind, that'll be for UDS. Go to the graph display text, change wind to, and then we'll do change wind intensity to, and we'll drag our wind intensity in, and then we'll just add a couple more pins for the direction, and direction, we'll plug that in. Neaten up a little bit, and in theory, that's it. We've just guessed at what the variables were. It does get a bit flaky like with the weather type. That took, as you can imagine, a little bit more time to figure out. So here, this is a function. But if you just drag off the weather and do change weather, and you'll see you've already got a bunch of functions anyway, so I tried it out. You can't really break anything, I don't think. I don't think anything on here is permanent. If we come back to here, and what do we do? Yeah, let's add a player response. Just go make it windy, please. And then we'll not add anything for it to say, funnily, and then we'll go change wind. And we want it to be windy, don't we? So we'll say the wind intensity would get a good 10. The wind direction, we'll just, I don't know, set it to 0. And then we also want to make it unwindy as well. So nice wind, please. I'll copy the events with shift right click and then shift left click, open it up, and we'll set the intensity back to 0. So now if we try it this time, we can come up, we can talk to it, and we'll say make it windy, please. And you can hear the wind. You can't see anything, but you can hear it. So let's add some rain to it then, because then you'll be able to see the rain. So in 5 seconds, or 15 seconds, I can't remember which one it was, the wind's calming, the storm's coming, and now it's raining, because the rain's preset removes the wind. So if we come back in, she looks a bit like Mr. Bean there with the light, and then go make it windy again, we can see the wind's intensity is there, but not the direction. So let's actually take a look at the direction. So 0 must be straight down, so let's ignore that. Let's go and set it, the direction, to 180 when it's badly windy. Now I'll come and talk to her and I'll make it rain. So I've just changed it to 5 seconds off camera, so hopefully, there we go. And now if I run up and talk to her again, let's now make it windy. And you will see, and you can now see it has indeed changed the wind direction and the intensity. So now the rain is pelting down, which is perfect. That is a couple of events to help you integrate narrative and UDS. But we need the conditions, don't we? We need to actually check what weather type it is, because you might have some quests or some triggers that only work in specific weathers, in specific times, whatever you need. So I'm going to come back to my narrative conditions folder. I'm going to right click narrative and I'll add a narrative condition. I'll call it NC underscore UDS underscore is weather type, and I'll open this one up. I think the is weather type is a little less used. You don't see many games go, you can only do this quest if it's raining. You'll more so do it a time-based one, but it'll be okay for now. But I'll open up the check condition, and I'm pretty much going to go and copy the same thing. So for checking the weather, we do need the UDS weather, which is this one. So I'm going to copy all of this and the return node as well. I'll paste it into here, and then we'll come across, I'll promote this to a variable just so we can reuse it later, local variable. Then UDW not found, so we know we don't want to deal with it. Otherwise, we do have it, so we need to return true or false for the condition to tell narrative whether it has found it or not. So if UDW is not found, we'll just return false, saying we can't check it. And then if we're checking the weather, so we'll do get weather type. We've got a basic enum here. So if we drag this off, do equals and connect it to our variable here, and we'll say weather type is the name. And then we can simply connect this directly to the return type, like so. But if I come and set the class settings for this is weather type, we'll set it to UDS for the category, and then we'll come and override the get graph display text, and then just like normal, we'll append to it, and we'll simply say is weather type currently. Then we'll drag our enum in and connect like so. We'll hit compile and save. And now, this time, if we drag this up a little bit and add another player node here, we can simply say, why is it raining? And we'll add a condition to this, which simply says, is the weather type currently rain? And then from here, if it's raining, she can say, oops, sorry, let's change that. And then I'll go and grab the event to change the weather, paste it back over here just so it's that bits up for us. And we'll say, let's make it snow. Everybody wants snow. And now let's try it. So you should see now we have a condition. We don't have the node about it being rainy. Okay, so if we talk to her and she's going to make it rain, so we just have to wait for it to rain. There we go. And now if we talk to her, why is it raining? How cool is that? So we can talk to her and she'll go, oops, sorry, let's change that. And you will see the rain will turn to lovely, lovely snow. We can even get rid of the wind as well. There you go. So it's changed direction. So yes, there we go. That is a basic narrative condition to check the weather type. But what about if we want to check the time of day, which is a very common condition in games? If you think of games like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, some missions can only be done at certain times of day. Like it'll say between 6 and something. So let's go and have a look at that one. So if I duplicate this NC UDS weather type, and I'll call it is time of day, and we'll open this up. I'll go into the check condition, and we don't need the ultra dynamic weather anymore. We need the sky, so we'll add the ultra dynamic sky. We'll rename the variable. We'll rename the type. We'll connect it all up with a new get. UDS not found. And then now what do we want to check? Well, we need to check if the time of day is somewhere. But if you've got the animated time of day turned on, where you can tell ultra dynamic sky to change how long bits are, you're going to have to be very specific to get 52 or 60 or something. So instead, let's make it is time of day within a range. because then if you have the range where you have to be there at 6 o'clock bang on, then you just set both the min and max to 6 o'clock and they have to be there. Whereas if you've got between 6 and say 6 in the morning like San Andreas does, you've got so much easier time for your player to actually test it. So from the UDS, let's get the time of day. So we've got time of day in real format. You could use that. That'll get you the hours, minutes, and seconds if you want that way. For me personally, I'm just going to get the basic float, what we've been using to change it earlier. So the time of day here is just a float between 2400, which is 24 hours. Then you've got 12 hours, which is middle of the day. And then you've got 0 hours. So I'm going to stick with that one. For me personally, but you can do whatever you like. And then all I'm going to do is grab this and say in range, and let's plug this into over here. The inclusive min and max, that basically means that if you set your minimum to 6 o'clock and your maximum to 7 o'clock, and you arrive and run this condition at exactly 6 o'clock, then the inclusive min will say 6 o'clock and all the way up to 7. If you untick inclusive min, 6 o'clock won't work. You'll have to wait till 6:01. So I kind of want it. I'm not going to be that specific in my game. You might have a game where you want. Just promote those to variables if that's what you need. Then connect this is valid back up. We'll go to our class settings and we'll say is time of day. And then we'll go to our get graph display text, is time of day currently. And then instead of the weather type, we'll drag this in and say is time of day currently between the minimum, which will be there, add 2, and we'll say the maximum there. And now if I delete the weather type variable because we don't need it, compile and save. This time, let's add a specific condition to the dialog so we can start it. So I'll come in and add our play response, and I'll say this can only be activated at nighttime, and I'll say how long was that quest? It was daytime not long ago. Well, we don't want to be saying that during daytime. If I come in and add a condition of is time of day, and I'll say, well, nighttime, let's go and test it. What time does this think it's nighttime? So if I do like 2000 is nighttime. What about 6 o'clock? So that's like 1800. It's getting there. Okay, so we'll say, I think between 6 and 6, like Grand Theft Auto does, is a good one. So I'll come and say, if it's between 600, which is 6 o'clock in the morning, to 1800, which is nighttime, and then she can come in and say, yeah, it's pretty dark now. There we go. And then do we have a make it nighttime? Yeah, we do. So we can come and test it again. So if we come in now and talk to them, you can see I've made a little mistake with it. I'm checking if the time is currently between 6 in the morning to 6 at night. Well, it is because we're in the middle of the day. So I'm just going to come and tick not here in narrative. So reverse that and say if it's not in between those times. So if I come in and you can see it's no longer available. So if I make it nighttime and she's gone, oh, it's a stealth mission now, and talk to her again, you can see how long was that quest? There we go. A much better example. If I start it and you can see it's pretty dark now, there we go. It is nighttime. If I come and say it's the daytime again, talk to her, you can see it is now gone. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. A narrative and ultra dynamic sky compatibility thing. It's dead easy to do. Super, super easy. If you find any settings you can't figure out how to change, let me know in the comments below. So what I will do is I will organize this a bit neater so it's at root level, and I will upload this to GitHub, and I'll drop a link in the description. So go and download it. And what I figured we could do is if people mention cool ones they found, we can add it in to the GitHub and build up a massive amount of UDS and narrative compatibility layers. And I think that would be really, really cool. So thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It does help going towards supporting the channel and my very expensive purchase of a new mocap suit. So thank you for watching. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next time.